So, good morning, students. So, how many of you have connected in the stream? Okay, good morning, Upasana. So, anyone else who is connected? Okay, then we'll start. So, today we'll take up timing diagram. Okay, so have you studied timing diagrams previously? Okay, what does a timing diagram represent? Okay, so timing diagram, as we can guess from the name, means what it is, something relating to the timing, means related to the say timeline of a particular say process in an electronic circuit. So it is basically a graphical representation. It represents the execution time taken by each instruction in a graphical format. So here, with respect to our computer architecture, we are concerned with the execution. Okay, later on I'll tell who has submitted, who has not. Okay, so now actually if I again open up, though it will take up some time, so later on I'll inform. So with respect to our computer architecture, what does it tell us? It tells us the timing or the various processes or signals which will get generated while executing a particular instruction. Okay, so what is an instruction cycle now? The time required to execute an instruction. So this is basically your instruction cycle, followed by we have got next something known as machine cycle, the time required to access the memory or input output device. So here basically we have got two things which are very important. One is your instruction cycle, other is your machine cycle. Okay, so instruction cycle, what does it tell us? The time required to execute an instruction, whereas machine cycle, what does it tell us? It is the time required to access the memory or input output devices. So I hope all of you know by now that whenever we are going to execute an instruction, it has got some steps, right? Like instruction fetch, then your decode, then execute, and finally write. So there are certain steps while you or whenever you are executing an instruction. So this timing diagram tells us what all changes will happen in our CPU with respect to time whenever we are going to execute an instruction. So is it clear what this timing diagram will represent? So we'll take up examples and then I think it will be clear. Okay, so what is a clock period? I hope all of you have seen clock pulses in your digital logic. What is a clock pulse? What is a clock pulse? And yes, good morning to all who are wishing. So any answers, please? What is a clock pulse? So, so basically, I hope all of you have studied flip-flops and this basic counters and this kind of circuits, right? Where you were using something known as clock pulses. So These are some of the signals which are used in our, say, digital circuits or your computers to synchronize between events. Okay, if we don't have any time reference at that time, what will happen? You cannot synchronize, means uh, to execute something effectively and efficiently there has to be a sequence. Say first one circuit has to operate, then only if this circuit has operated then the other circuit is going to function. So this synchronization has to be maintained, and it is for this reason we are using this clock pulse. Okay, now timing diagram, what does it tell us? It focuses on the changes whatever is happening. Okay, so on one hand you have got the time axis, and on the other hand you have got, say, the circuits or the signals whatever are getting generated. Okay, so with respect to time, how things are changing in a say digital circuit, you want to visualize that. So it is for this reason you are using timing diagram. If you remember, I had given you a basic structure of CPU, where there was this say system bus was there, IO module were there, then you had got something known as instruction register, memory address register, and this kind of things which were important to execute an instruction. So do you remember that part? Or if possible, I'll just try to search it. So let me just see whether this thing is there or not. See, this figure also represents a timing diagram, means with respect to time how things are changing. Okay, so this is basically for some flip-flop that they have given, but we are not considering this part. What we need is with respect to my CPU. So just a second, I'll just uh, try to show the diagram. No, this is not required for tomorrow's exam. Tomorrow's exam only you have got first unit. Okay, I think I had given it in that first and second. I think you need to study. You need to study first and unit for both the subjects, and it is basically your MCQ, right? So next week or next to next week we will go for one more test, and we will see these things. Uh, okay. So roughly we had this sort of structure, right? Or wait just a second. I had taken up this particular thing in your class. Just a second. So something of this structure was there, right? We had seen this particular thing. So if you pay attention here, so so this is the basic structure of a computer, right? So what we are doing is we are trying to fetch contents from memory or IO devices, and accordingly instructions were getting executed in my CPU. So first what happens, we have got this instruction register, right? So instruction register, what it will contain, it will contain the current executing instruction, whatever you want to execute, then it will be forwarded via this data buses, okay, and it will get fetched from memory or IO, whatever is there, and it will be loaded up into my data register, and then based on the type of instruction it is going to get executed. Okay, so this was the context. Now with respect to this, what we want to study, how or what is the sequence of events. Okay, and it is very essential to remember this sequence, because you might get questions in your exams, means what or how many states are required to execute a particular machine instruction. Okay, so please pay attention here. Now next what do we have? Okay, so time period. Okay, so here if you see, every your internal clock within the digital circuit has got a particular frequency. Okay, means this oscillator, it is vibrating with a particular frequency. Okay, means how many pulses it is going to produce in a particular second. Okay, so you can find the time period of a individual pulse. So this is t is equal to 1 by f. So if the frequency of the oscillator or clock is your, say, 15 megahertz, so it is roughly producing your say 15,000 pulses per second. Okay, so at that time what will be the duration of a single pulse? It is that basically 1 by f. Okay, so this is also known as a t state. Okay, so t state, what does it represent? The it is the time duration for a single clock pulse. Okay, now inside a clock pulse, half of it is going to be 0 and remaining half is going to be 1. Okay, so whenever it is moving from 0 to 1, this part it is known as the rising edge. Okay, and whenever it is moving from 1 to 0, it is known as falling edge. Okay, so you might have learned this thing in your digital logic. Rising edge triggered flip flop or falling edge triggered flip flop. So what does it mean? Means whenever the clock pulse, if it is, say for example, a positive edge triggered flip flop, so what does it say? That whenever the state is going to change from 0 to 1, at that time the flip flop will be activated. Okay, and falling edge triggered flip flop, what does it mean? Whenever it is going to move from 1 to 0, at that time it will get activated. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So next what do we have? Timing diagrams. Okay, so 8085 has got 7 basic machine cycles. Okay, and each of them have got some fixed number of say uh, you can so each operation has got some fixed number of machine states. Okay, first is your opcode fetch cycle. So either it is 4 clock states or 6 clock states. Then you have got memory read cycle, it is 3 states. Memory write, it is also 3 states. IO read 3, IO write, it is 3. Interrupt acknowledgement. So I think interrupt we have not studied it yet. We will see it in this coming part. Interrupt, what does it mean? Whenever there is say you are going for some kind of IO operation, okay, you need to notify your CPU that you have completed or you have started the IO process. Okay, so this is done with the help of an interrupt. Okay, so we'll see interrupt. There are 3-4 types of this interrupt acknowledgements. We'll see all of them. And then we have what's a bus idle cycle. Okay, so bus idle basically means your everything is in idle state, so there is no issues as such. So you can see this how many number of machine cycles are needed, and try to remember the sequence. It is very essential, means after what cycle what is going to happen. Okay, so we will see what happens in each of the cycles. Okay, and please try to remember the sequence also, it is very essential. So here comes the first, say you have got opcode fetch cycle. So what is happening? Okay, so first what we will do is we will try to go through the operations that are happening, and then we will try to relate it with the diagram. Okay, so if you see here closely, or say we'll just try to analyze what is happening, then we'll read what operations are going on here. So if you see here, it has got say 4 cycles, right? T1, T2, T3, T4. So each are individual clock pulses. So first if you see here, A8, A15, AD0 to AD7. So these are basically your address buses. I hope I had told about this in your earlier classes. So I don't think you should be confused. So AD0 to AD7, I think this is multiplexed lines. So you can use it for both address as well as data, whereas this is used for only specifying the address. So if you see here in T1 and T2, what is actually happening? So in one part you have got this lower order memory address, on the other hand you have got higher order memory address. Okay, so if we see here what is happening in this T1 state, we can say that the CPU is placing the address in the system bus, right? Next, this particular signal is activated here, ALE, which is your address latch enable, right? So means what? Address latch enable, what does it specify? That your this AD0 to AD7, it is having memory address now. It is not having data, it is having memory. So as because it is a multiplex bus, so you are specifying address here. So this line is activated. Okay. Next, I think we have got this. This is a signal IO oblique M. So this is also activated. Okay, so some status lines are signals are there, so these are getting activated. Okay, so IO oblique M complement, it is 0, means it is not an IO operation. Okay, it is a memory read operation, and some status S0 and S1, these are also set to 1, whereas your read is set to 1. So this is for first T state or the first cycle here. After this, what is happening? If you see here, in the second cycle, address latch enable is 0. Means what? Now this part AD0 to AD7, this will be used to transfer data. Okay, so here if you see, whenever this RD complement signal means read is set to 0, at the time only your opcode, so opcode is stored somewhere in memory, so this is getting loaded up in your bus. Okay, this multiplex bus AD0 to AD7, so this is getting loaded up here. Okay, and after this again it is say set to 1, and so we can say that we have completed this opcode fetch cycle. So you have successfully placed the contents of opcode from memory to your bus. So see, this is only a ordering, means what all changes are happening in the signals or in the memory bus with respect to each clock pulse. Okay, so this is not representing like where the contents are moving. So this we have already explained it in class, I think, when your university classes were going. If you remember, in the unit 1 or unit 2, we have taken up these things. Okay, or if you feel like you have it is not clear, then we can take it up again. Okay, so this is only telling you what all changes are happening in the circuit. Okay, now we'll try to read it and see what actually we can understand. The opcode fetch cycle fetches the instructions from memory and delivers it to the instruction register of the microprocessor. So this is the basic thing whatever was we were discussing, like IR instruction register, it is going to hold the contents of the instruction. Okay, next, during the T1 state or the first clock pulse, the contents of the program counter are placed on the 16-bit address bus. So I hope all of you know what is program counter, right? So what is program counter? What is a program counter? That contains address. So what address? It contains the address, but which address does it contain? Yes, basically the next instruction, whatever is going to get executed, it is going to contain that particular address. Okay, so here if you see, uh, so where were we? Okay, so T1 state. So during the T1 state, the contents of program counter are placed on the 16-bit address bus. Okay, address bus, I hope for 8085 we know that it is 16 bits. So what is happening? Higher order 8 bits are transferred to address bus A8 to A15, and lower order 8 bits are transferred to multiplex AD bus. Means it is used for both data as well as address. So it is a multiplexed line, lower order. Okay, AD0 to AD7. And then what? Address latch enable signal goes high. So as soon as ALE goes high, the memory latch, the AD0 to AD7, so the memory latches this particular bus. So basically what does it mean? It means that this multiplexed bus is going to be used for transferring address instead of data. Okay, at the middle of the t state the ALE goes low. So if you see here, in the middle of this first t state, this is going to get low now. When it gets low, what does it mean? That now it is going to be used for transferring data. Means it will now transfer contents from memory to CPU. In the first case, when it was high, what does it mean? That it is transferring the contents from CPU to memory. Now if this is low, means the other way, from memory to CPU data will flow. Okay, so next, T2 state. So during the beginning of this state, RD complement signal goes low to enable memory. Okay, so it is during this state the selected memory location is placed on D0 to D7 of the address data multiplexed bus. So if you see in the previous diagram, in the middle of this T2 state, this RD complement signal is going to be low, and the contents will now be placed from I mean the contents will be placed from memory to the data bus. Okay, T3 state. In the previous state, the opcode is placed in D0 to D7 of the AD bus. In this state of the cycle, the opcode of AD bus is transferred to the instruction register of the microprocessor. Now the RD complement goes high after this action, thus disables the memory from AD bus. Okay, and T4 state, what does it say? In this state, the opcode which was fetched from the memory is decoded. Okay, so this is something else. So if you see here, in the second half of this T3 state, this is RD is again set to high, and means what? The contents have been placed from memory to your instruction register. So what you need to remember in this diagram is what all uh, say signals are required for a particular operation, and what buses are required, means what will be their communication path. So what does it represent? The sequence of operations which will be required for a particular machine cycle. Okay, so here what we are going for, we are going for opcode fetch cycle. So these are the things which will happen when we are going to execute this particular instruction. So you will get these diagrams in book, these are there. Okay, so this is your opcode fetch cycle, which has been completed in 4 clock pulses, you can say, or 4 t states. Okay, so next comes, we have got memory read cycle. So this is for opcode fetch, and in T4 state, what is happening? It is being decoded now for execution. Next comes memory read. Say if we want something, if you want to read something from memory, so what is happening? So here it is taken up in 3 clock cycles. Okay, so 3 pulses, A5, sorry, A8 to A15, you are storing the higher order memory address, and in AD0 to AD7 you are storing the lower order memory address. So whenever you are using this multiplexed line to transfer the address, so what you are doing, you are setting this address latch enable, or you are activating this particular signal to mean that your combined data bus AD0 to AD7, this is being used for transferring memory. Okay, so first you have transferred the memory address from which you want to read. Now next, what? RD is, initially it is high, so it's because it is a complemented signal, so it is initially set to high. So in middle of this T2 state, this is set to 0. So whenever it is set to 0, means what? It will read the content or place the content from memory to the bus. So here you have placed the contents. Okay, and then you are again setting this RD not high in the third clock cycle. So this means that you have placed the content from memory to the CPU, or you have transferred the contents, okay, to the say memory data register. Okay, so here if you see, or if you try to relate both of the cycles, you will see that whenever it is reading any content from, okay, you can watch it later on if you want, and if you are having any issues for understanding, you can contact me, no problem with that. So here if you see, both of them are, or the operation is almost analogous whenever we are trying to read anything from memory. Only thing what is different here is, in the fourth cycle this opcode will be decoded here, but here it does not, in for memory read cycle it does not have this opcode read, means you are only getting the content. Okay, so is it clear, this particular diagrams, both of them? Actually you are trying to depict the changes sequentially. Okay, so whatever changes are taking place inside the CPU, you are trying to depict these things in a pictorial form. Okay, or in a sequence, or said in based on the ordering of that events. So you can read this, what is happening, the higher order. So for memory read, what you have got in T1 state, the higher order address 80 to 87 and lower order address and data multiplex, this bus, you are placing the contents of the, or you are basically setting the address here. ALE goes high so that the memory latches the 80 to 87, so that complete 16-bit address are available. Okay, the MP identifies the memory read machine cycle from the status signal IO oblique M complement S not is S1 is equal to 1 and S. This condition indicates the memory read cycle. Okay, so this is basically meaning here that it is a memory read operation. So these status lines you have to remember what are their contents. Okay, next comes T2 state. Selected memory location is placed on the D0 to D7 of the AD multiplex bus. RD complement goes low. T3 state, the data which was loaded on the previous state is transferred to the microprocessor. In the middle of T3 state, RD complement goes high and disables the memory read operation. The data which was obtained from memory is then decoded. Okay, so next we have got your memory write cycle. So it is similar only. So here what we have got, only in place of your read signal we have got your write signal. Okay, rest of the things are same only. So these three things, or say four things, these are always, if you try to relate it, these are always similar for all the states, almost code fetch, memory read, memory write. So these are almost similar. Only things which are different is the activation line. For memory read you have got RD, and for write you have got WR. Okay, so next we have got for IO read cycle. So for IO read what we have got, so we won't transfer here memory address, instead we'll transfer here port address. Okay, so this is only the difference, rest all the things are same only. So for IO read, we are not taking up the contents from your memory, but we are taking it up from the IO port. So each individual IO ports have got addresses to identify them. So this IO port address will be placed here, and the data or whatever is there, this will be transferred. Okay, so this is same only, just try to follow it. I don't think I need to explain anything here because the diagrams are similar. So IO write also, it is to an extent similar. Only thing is, in place of read you have got write here. So next let us see this particular instruction. So what will be the timing diagram for this particular instruction? So what we have got, say STA 526A, so H means 526A. So this is a hexadecimal number. So you want to store something into this particular address. Okay, so opcode value is this much. Addresses are given here, means in which particular memory address this particular instruction is placed. So if you see here, 42 after 41FF 4200 is going to start. So 52 is placed in this particular memory address, and 6A, so this is placed in this particular memory address. Okay, so it requires, say, 4 machine cycles, 13 T states. Why 13? Opcode fetch you need require 4 T states. Memory read you require 3 T states. Again you have got a memory read. Why? Because you have got an say this 16-bit number, so you have to go for 2 memory reads and finally a memory write. Okay, so just see here what is happening. So these are individual clock pulses. Now first what you have done is you have placed the contents, okay, of memory. So if you see here, these are the memory locations that you have got: 41FF, 4200 and 4201. So these three memory locations you have to access. So first if you see here, AD0 to AD7, what it is having, FF, and here what it is having, 41. So you are effectively trying to read 40. Okay, now is it okay? Okay, then we'll continue. So here if you see here, we are trying to execute this particular instructions and we are trying to see what will be the changes. Okay, so say you want to read this particular, or you want to execute this particular instruction, STA 526AH means hexadecimal number. So here first one, it is going to or the first memory address, so it is starting from this particular memory address. So first memory address is going to store the opcode. I think this is clear with you guys because we have seen this many times in lab, so there should not be any confusion here. So first address, it is going to store the opcode. Next it is going to store the data. So 4200, this is immediately the address which follows 41FF. So it is storing the lower order 6A, and 4201, it is storing the higher order, means 52. So ultimately it is storing what, 52 6A. So this is the memory address where you want to write the contents of accumulator directly. So this is the execution of STA. Means what does STA denote? It is storing the address from accumulator to that particular memory address. Okay, so it requires 13 machine cycle. Why? First you need to do it for opcode fetch, then memory read operations. Okay, means here why you are going for two memory reads, because it is a 16-bit number, so you cannot do it in a single memory read. And then you have got memory read, means you will store the content to that identified memory location. So let's just try to follow it. So first 41FF it is reading. Okay, and so if you see here, it is reading this particular 41FF. So AL is activated, RD is activated. So when RD is activated, 32 is getting stored in your, or it is getting loaded in your CPU, and it is, say, after this, in this particular T4 state, it is getting executed. Okay, next we want to read, say, 4200H. Okay, so this was the address where 6A is placed. So here what is happening, here if you see closely, RD is again activated and 6A is placed in my CPU. Okay, next what, 4201H it is getting, or we are reading it. So here 52 is getting placed here. Okay, so if you remember this von Neumann architecture, it is basically your stored program execution. Means whatever program you want to execute, you have to store it in memory and then you have to execute it sequentially, right? So we are doing this only here. So contents of the instruction are placed in memory. We are first reading it. Okay, and then we are executing it. So here what we are essentially doing is we are first reading the contents. So once we have executed this particular instruction, so the corresponding addresses are being read, 4200, 4201, and finally if you see here, we have got a memory write operation. So what is happening, we are writing the contents to memory address. So here if you see, say we are assuming that this is having, or we want to write this particular value to the memory location 526A. So 526A is placed in the system bus. After this, write signal is activated and this content is stored in that particular memory location. So is this sequence clear, what is actually happening? Any doubts? Although it is intuitive, means it is something clear to understand, but still if you have got any doubts, please ask. Okay, so last part what is happening is T12 T17. Here actually they have missed one thing. they did not give you what is there in your accumulator. Okay, STA instruction, what does it specify? What does your STA specify? So why is this STA used? You forgot. No storing immediate. Yes, it is storing the content of uh, the accumulator in the memory, right? So if you see here, this instruction STA526A, here it will store the content of accumulator whatever it is to this particular memory address. So first you need to read it. Okay, so here if you remember, uh, say basic instruction, it is having the opcode followed by memory address, right? Or operands. Here what are the operands? 526A. So yes, because this is a 16-bit number, but you cannot store it in a single memory location. If you remember, this 8085, it has got only 8-bit memory location storage. Okay, in a particular memory location you can store only 8 bits. So 526A, you cannot store it in a single memory location, so you have to store it in two successive memory locations, right? So this is, I think, clear. So first initial it will have 32H, which is the opcode of STA, and then it has got 6A and 52. So these are the addresses. So first what is happening here, you just see, first from this particular memory locations, the opcode as well as the operands or the memory addresses are being read out. Okay, so STA by default, it means that it is going to store the content of accumulator to the memory location. Okay, so here you have, say in the first fetch cycle you have decoded it in T4. So now you know that it is going to store the content from accumulator to memory location. So what you do is, next you are reading the memory location where you want to store. Okay, so this is given in the instruction itself. So you are fetching the memory location here. So 6A you have fetched here. Okay, you have read the content from 4200. Next what you have done, you have read the content from 4201. So 526A. So this is your effective memory location where you want to store it. Okay, next is your memory write operation. Is because this is a storing operation, so you have to write the content. So you see here, lower order, lower order is placed in 6A and higher order is placed in A8, A15, which is my 52. So 52 6A. Okay, so this is the entire memory location. Next, here someone asked what is happening in T12 and T13. So T12 and T13, whatever data is there, it is, or it will be placed in that particular memory location. So here they have not specified what is there in the accumulator. They are only assuming that C7 is there in my accumulator and you are storing this in 52 6A. Is it clear? So here you can see this write signal is activated. Okay, means this content will be placed to this particular memory address. Is it clear now? Okay. So next you have got they have given it from for some other instructions also. You can see it. I think this is not required out because it is something different. So MVI. Sorry. So MVI you can see the operation. So first is they are fetching the code. Okay. And next what? They are going for a memory read operation. Okay. So why we require this memory read? Because we are going for a stored program concept. So whatever is there or whatever instruction is there, it is stored in consequent or subsequent memory locations. Okay, so if you see here MVIB, opcode is first placed in this address and the operand is placed in this address. Okay, so I think now we can make sense how these things are working more precisely. Okay, so any doubts? So you have got it for INR and ADM values. You can see it. So with this we have reached the end of this particular say lecture. So you can see here what is actually happening for MVIB. So first we are assuming that it is in memory address 2000 and 2001. So first 2000 is storing the opcode, whereas 2001 it is storing the operand. Okay, so here these things are same only. A higher order is placed in this A8, A15 and lower order is placed in AD0 to AD7. So first you will read the opcode. Okay, so you have read the opcode from memory with this RD line. Next in T4 state you have decoded the instruction. Then what you are again reading the content from the next memory location, which is 2001. So higher order 2020 and lower order 01. So here you can get the data. Okay, so this is your 43H. So for drawing this timing diagrams, you need to have a very clear idea how these contents are placed in your memory location. Okay, so this is very essential. So it is also important then you study this 8085 simulator well. Okay, so whenever you are executing an instruction, I think there was this memory column where the contents were changing. Okay, so you can see this thing. So is it clear? Any more thing, any more or anything that you want to ask? Okay, next class. I think today evening. Do you want to have a class? Okay, then we'll meet next on say Saturday, because tomorrow we'll have this test. So next we'll meet on Saturday again. Tomorrow we'll have the class. So tomorrow what time you will all be ready? So test will be done online only. I have not finalized the platform. Either it will be in Google Classroom or say Google Forms, or from some other website. 8:30. Will all of you be ready at 8:30? So test will be for 15 minutes only. Okay. So AM everything test will be in the morning only, because some of your friends have called me and asked to carry the test in the morning. Reason is that they are not having the internet facility at home and they have to move out. So at night it becomes a bit difficult for them to move. Okay. So they have asked me to carry the test in the morning. So test will be in the morning session. So yes, if you want, you can make it at 9:30. Okay. So test will be of say 15 to 20 minutes, 10 marks. MCQ questions will be there. 10 a.m. will be late. I think it's better you make it at 9:30. And please inform this girl. I don't know what her name is. Something. I'll just see. Okay, 9:30. You make it at 9:30. So first 15 minutes you will appear for this say object oriented, and then next 15 minutes you will appear for your COA. Okay. And please be sure that you submit within the specified time, because it will be online, and after this if you are not able to submit within the time, it will be closed. Okay. So you need to be very specific that you submit within the fixed time. Yes, I'll conduct it on Google only, in Google Classroom basically. So please be sure that you submit the form within this particular time. Okay. So 5 minutes buffer time I am giving only. 10 minutes MCQ, 10 questions MCQ, you don't require more than 10 minutes, so I'm giving it 15 minutes. Okay, so by default there will be 10 marks or 10 MCQs you have to answer, and time will be your 15 minutes. So first 15 minutes, then I think there will be a break of say 5 to 10 minutes, and then you will get the second test in for COA. So be ready, because I will place the instructions in your Google Classroom, where what we will do is I will set the time when to say publish that particular form. So it will be totally server dependent. I cannot do anything. Means it will start accepting say from 9:30 your responses. It will also publish the content at 9:30 in your Google Classroom. After this, is because it will be a form, so it has got a limited time duration to accept your responses. So it will say it will be accepting for up to 9:45. After this it won't accept anything. So please be sure that you submit the form within that particular time. Okay, or else later on you cannot submit. Yes, I will set the instructions, means it will notify you before, and then you will get the forms. Okay, even instructions will be there along with the Google form. So please be very specific, and please synchronize your clock according to this Google time. Okay, so how you can find the time? Just go to Google and type time. So whatever time your Google will show, okay, so that will be the time frame, or that will be the standard time with which everything will be synchronized. Okay, so now I hope all of you know why these timing diagrams are important for this sort of synchronization only. So please go to Google and see what is the time. Now actually presently it is showing 10:36 a.m. in my say browser. So all of you, what you can do is you can synchronize your watches, you can synchronize your laptops with that particular time. Okay, so that later on you don't get confused for this time frame. So please synchronize your devices, whatever you have got, with your Google, so that later on you don't say, sir, it is 15 minutes earlier or 5 minutes earlier. There should not be this sort of argument. Please synchronize it, and then based on this only you will get to know the notification. And please be on that Google Classroom page. Okay, because questions will come there only. So at 9:30 you can refresh the page and you will get the content, or else it will be notified also by email. But what happens is, when it is getting notified by email, sometimes it takes up some time. Okay, you might not be notified means at that instant only. Say after 5 minutes you might be notified. So it is better that you be on that page. When it is published, you directly access the content. So at 9:30 or 9 yes, at 9:30 you start refreshing that particular page and you will get the form. Okay, yes, I will be there in Hangout also, and also I will I think I will be there in this YouTube chat also. Okay, it's better we don't go for chat, because I think it will consume up some bandwidth, and as a result you will get some slower content. So yes, if you get technical error, that is the thing we want to see, right? If there is technical error, we will see. But something, or at least we need to act, right? Or we need to do our basic task. So if this is not done, then we have to cross this barrier, psychological barrier. So if there is technical error, so the responsibility is on me, that there is God. people don't have this sort of issues, or at least all of them are able to appear. So that is my responsibility. But apart from this, if anything else goes wrong, so this is on me, so you don't need to worry much about it. And I have seen this, your previous attendance thing. I saw this thing that chalo, this is working fine. Okay, why? Because all of you are simultaneously means submitting the forms, so there was no such kind of issue. So I don't think there should be any problem with your normal test also. So I have already tested the hardware on you guys, or the system. It is working. Because see, submitting a simple form and submitting this MCQ, I mean form, there should not be any difference according to me. So all of you are simultaneously submitting it in your this particular um, I mean Google form, so it was working. So I don't think there should be any problem now. So please inform this particular student. I don't know how to spell her name. So this particular student, so I have given the name. So please inform her, because she has explicitly called me and told me about her problems that she is facing. Yes, she will appear the test. She has told that I will be appearing the test, sir. So please inform me the timings and everything. Even your friends, whoever are having these internet problems, like they need to go outside somewhere else to access internet. So please inform all of them. Okay, so that they are not lagging behind. I don't want that some students they feel alienated, or they are not able to participate in this sort of activities. Actually, it will be a bit say harassing for them also. So I don't want such kind of scenario. Please inform all of your friends so that they are able to attend this thing in the fixed allotted time. So thank you everyone. So we'll meet tomorrow for the test, and after this on Saturday we'll meet again. Okay, thank you everyone for listening, and I will end the stream.